Hello, I want to talk about something today that really has eluded me a bit the last while. This idea that Dale. Sometimes I'm just late to things that I don't want to be late to. I run late. That's like my that's one of the flaws that I really don't like about myself. And my wife 10 minutes ago she said to me, Dale, we got to really figure out. We got to get these kids better dressed for church because they look like ragamuffins sometimes, right? And it's me that's doing it. Sometimes I use the wrong moose. Sometimes I don't. Um, you know, my son was wearing his zip up tie like above his collar and everything, and I didn't fix it till we got there. Sometimes we're just late, and it's not a pretty sight. And then I just run late sometimes, and it's kind of sad. But what I thought about is, man, if we're perpetually late, I think the only real truth there is that we just don't care enough. We just don't care enough. So if we do care, we need to figure something out. We need to care enough to fix it. So a few examples come to mind. Imagine that you have a really important meeting with like a famous person or something. You're going to lunch. How often are we going to show up late to that? I'd say that we never show up late, right? Even if you're horrible at managing your schedule and your time, you're likely not going to show up late. Or a few weeks ago, I made the example of like Disneyland energy. If you went to Disneyland, how many of us, even if we're horrible time managers, would show up late to Disneyland? I don't think we would. I think we'd show up on time and then we'd run to Space Mountain, right? Or Star Tours. That's where I would run. So, no, we show up early when we care enough and when we have the story, when the story kind of makes sense to us. So if it doesn't, we need to rewrite that story. We need to tell ourselves a different story. So for church, my wife and I have a task of we need to tell ourselves a different story. Whether it's maybe we need to hyper focus on being, 15 minutes early, which means we're ready to go 30 minutes early, and which means we start getting ready an hour and a half before that. Whatever it is, we need to rewrite that situation so we don't just perpetually act the same way out of habit. And I think we're real creatures of habit. I shared in another video how I started waking up at 3:30 in the morning, and this morning's a perfect example. I'm going out of town soon, and I wanted to be with my family, so I stayed up late last night. I didn't go to bed at 8:30. I went to bed at 9:45. No, at 9:30. So I went to bed late, but I changed my schedule so much that now even going to bed late, I'm still waking up half an hour earlier than I usually would. I woke up at 4:30 this morning. So sometimes we need to make big changes, but I would just ask the question, if you have something that you're struggling with, or you're not, is perpetually, you're perpetually late to something, or you haven't been able to fix your diet, or you haven't started going to the gym, really focus on if you actually care about it. And if you do care about it, put some actual structures in place. I've talked about this HATS model before, where you say identify your hope, your actual outcome, your tactics, and your specifics. Really look at your problem from multiple perspectives, and focus on solving that. Focus on building out that problem so the story does make sense. So it becomes like Disneyland, so you have to be on time. Oh, or so even just your friend, you treat it just like you would the famous person. So you show up to lunch early with those meetings. So yes, if you don't, if you're not doing something, the reality is you just don't care enough about it. We're super capable once we care enough.